that if you want to decorate, you can decorate before you tape it. An example of what you might do to decorate, maybe you'll put some panel lines on it, or maybe you'll put some finger paint on it. Some of the guys are using finger paint. To give you an idea, here's one that I just put panel lines on. And you can see I just drew a couple of lines. I have even taken the time to put rivets on it. But at any rate, if you put the ink or the decoration on first, whenever you tape it, the tape will protect it and keep it from rubbing off. Now let's go to the inside. On the inside, I've reinforced the inside of the wing. Here I've used masking tape just to show you where the tape is at and how it's layered. You can use the regular clear tape. The packing tape works just fine. But you can see I've got a piece of tape first up near the spar pockets, and it stops here at the battery hole. The same thing on the other side. It's up near the spar pocket, but it's kept away from the center line here. And there's two layers here. One comes right to the edge of the radius and all the way from out to here, and then stays back about 3/4 of an inch away from the edge. On this piece of tape, it's next to the spar pockets and stops here where the battery pocket is, and then the second piece goes below it, lapping it, and then the third piece of tape is going to go right over the center of this seam, and again stopping here, and then a third piece of tape will go right over the center of this seam, and again stopping here. So this is the way you would tape it off. And what that's going to do is it's going to reinforce the inside of the wing. Here I'm putting the first piece of tape right down the center. And then I'll put the second piece of tape on the bottom going that way. And the third piece of tape is going to lap the first piece of tape here on the bottom by 1/8 of an inch. I'm just going to mash it down really well and go ahead and add the third piece. Again, lapping it about 1/8 of an inch. And we mash it down really good. And continue on. The next piece of tape, again lapping about 1/8 of an inch. Mash it down really well. And then another piece of tape, lapping that previous piece of tape by 1/8 of an inch. And that's going to put me over the center. So now I'm ready to turn this around and work from the other side. So again, I'm going to start down here and I'm going to go up that way. Again, the first piece of tape down near the bottom. The next piece of tape is going to lap at 1/8 of an inch. The next piece of tape is going to lap that one 1/8 of an inch. Next piece of tape is going to lap that one 1/8 of an inch. And then the next piece of tape is going to lap that one. It's going to put me just over the center. And now I'm going to finish by putting another piece of tape right over the center. So that's going to give me 4 layers of tape over the center of the wing here. I've gone around the edges to make sure everything is down flat. Now I'm going to go ahead and make the fold. So I'm going to hold it flat to the table and bend it up. And then I'm going to pull the edges together again on the front and the trailing edge. And then I'm going to hold that in place and mash the front down. Just like that. Now I'm going to mash this down really tight, and my trailing edges look good, so I have it here, I have it here, and we're good all the way to the back, so that's really good. So, granted, I fold a lot of these, so if I can make it really look easy, just take your time. And again, if you get off a little bit, you just take your razor and trim the long side back to the short side, and actually you're always going to wind up right here with a little high spot, so I just take my sanding straight edge and knock that off, so therefore I wind up with this straight. But now I'm going to go ahead and put this together. Okay, the first step is going to be to locate the top side, which is be the panels with the holes in them, and we're going to join those together. So you can see I'm just kind of taping this together using the packing tape so that I can hold it together. Now this area here is going to be cut out, so I'm not real concerned about it. But what I want to do now is go ahead and flip this over, open this up, and I'm going to glue this seam. Again, I'm going to use hot glue. You can use epoxy if you like. But I'm just going to run a small bead down the whole seam here. And the beauty with hot glue is the fact that you actually can build really quick. And so now I'm just making sure that I get all the glue, the excess glue off of this seam here. Now the other thing about the hot glue is the fact that you can just keep right on building. So now I have a choice. If I'm going to use epoxy, then I want to glue this down now. But again, since I'm using hot glue, I'm going to go ahead and add my reinforcing now. The hot glue actually sticks pretty well to this tape. So because I'm not using epoxy, I'm going to bring my tape all the way down to the trailing edge here. If I were using epoxy, then I would put this on and put a mark here and not get my tape below the mark, because I want to be able to epoxy this right to the foam. Because unlike the glue, the epoxy does not stick very well to the tape. But again, because I'm using hot glue, I'm going to run my tape all the way over across the back. So I'm going to go from that hole for the spar pocket all the way over to the other hole, which is going to be to right here. So now what I've done is just reinforce the center section here on the top. So now I'm going to put another piece of tape on top of it. And again, I'm going from the spar pocket all the way over to the spar pocket on the other side. Mashing the tape down really good. And now I'm going to go right up to the top. So I'm going to go from this spar pocket all the way over to the other spar pocket right on the bottom of the holes here, because again this part's going to be cut out. And then I'm going to add another piece of tape. Notice the direction of my tape as well, but I'm going to put it right here, and I'm going to push it down into the seam there. And now when I fold this over, I'm going to wind up with the edge and the edge on this side meeting, so I don't want to get my tape beyond that. So I'm just going to peel it back a little bit so that whenever I glue that, it'll be I'll be making contact with the foam. So now I've reinforced the center section here. Now, because again I'm going to be using hot glue, I'm going to go ahead and glue this piece down. I'm just going to run some glue around the edge and then put this in place. And it's a lot easier to go ahead and do it now than it is after it's together. Now I need to go ahead and put the spars in place. So what I'm going to do is take my spars and I'm going to pinch the edges of them so that they are wedge shape and they will expand back out. I'm going to do both sets. I'm just going to set them down in the pockets. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. So now once I've checked the fit on this side, I've got to go ahead and check the other side. And basically all I'm doing right now is just making sure that I have the spar to where all the notches will go in the holes. And it looks like I need to move this one a little forward. Something like that. And once I have the spars lining up, now I'm ready to go ahead and start putting this together. So now, at this point, I want to take the bottom edge, because this is the bottom side, and this will be pulled back up. So for right now, I'm just going to put it on here. I'm going to line up the bottom edge. That way it's straight across. And I'm going to move up a little bit and put another piece of tape, again lining up the bottom, just pulling it together just like that. And one more up toward the front. Again, just pulling it together, just like that. Now I'm going to be using some weight. And I'm going to line my spars up. And I'm just going to put some weight on here to hold that down. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other side, just making sure the bar goes in the pockets. Doing this on both sides. Once I have the spars in, then I'm just going to add some weight. And what the weight does is it just keeps the spar into the pockets. Now here's another great thing about the hot glue. You can use a piece of wood, you can use, in my case I'm using a piece of aluminum, and all I'm going to do is make sure that it goes from the edge here all the way out to the edge there. That way whenever I put this down, I get even pressure all the way across. So now I'm going to move my weight up so that I can expose this edge, and I'm going to glue the edge. And to ensure that I build a flat wing, you see I've got this flat on the table, this here is flat on the table. So now I'm going to run a bead of hot glue. Now this is a 10-watt gun, so it's really critical that you don't use too hot a gun, but that's all I need to do to glue this. So now I'm just going to hold this here and let that set. And now you can see this is just heavy enough to hold it, because all I want to do is hold the trailing edge down. Notice on this side I've got this held down, so that's actually holding that to shape. So now as soon as this dries, which will take about 2 minutes, then I'm going to put weight back on this side and go ahead and glue that side. Okay, at this point I've moved the weight over to this side, and now I'm going to go ahead and glue up this side over here, doing exactly the same thing. So I'm going to run a bead right on the bottom, and just making sure I do not have any glue build up on my tip. And then I'm going to run a nice little bead right along the trailing edge here. And again, the beauty of this hot glue is that it's actually pretty quick. So now we're going to set this down, pushing it, just letting the weight of this piece is actually all the weight that I need to hold this down. So now I'm going to let that set, and then whenever that dries, takes about 2 minutes, then we will have joined the trailing edge together on both sides. Okay, here is again the beauty of the hot glue, is that now I have built this wing, and if we look, it is perfect as far as being the same on either side. And if we turn it over, the distance that we have on either side is about the same. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue this seam, pull it together, and let the glue cure. And you can use epoxy, or in this case I'm just going to glue it together with hot glue. I'm going to start at the back here and pull this together just like this. Again, this is the beauty of the hot glue, is it does get glued together pretty quick. So you can see the hot glue is coming out of the seam, and that's exactly what I want. So now I have this seam glued together with hot glue, and now I'm going to let the glue settle. I'm going to make sure I don't have any glue build up underneath here, and you can see there the seam is nice and tight. Just going to remove any excess glue that's on the outside here, because I am going to be taping this. I'm going to go ahead and glue in the bottom piece of this, which is going to glue in right here. And again, I'm going to use the hot glue. So I'm just going to glue it. And then stick it in place. I was actually been really impressed with how well this hot glue actually holds and works on the foam and on the tape. So I've been so impressed, in fact, that the last few kits I've built using nothing but the hot glue. And here you can see that the firewall has been glued in place now, so I'm just going to remove any of the residual glue on the outside, just to make sure that I can put this in place just like that. So now I'm going to go ahead and glue in the firewall. So again, I'm going to put the hot glue down on both sides. And then I'm going to put it in place. I'm making sure to wipe it flat here because I do not want any buildup on the wood here. So now I've got this down flat. And again, the great thing about this hot glue is that you can work with it quick. One thing you need to make sure of is use the right hot glue gun. I'm using a 10 watt. If you get a 20 watt, you're going to wind up, the glue is going to be too hot. So you're using a 10 watt, and this one is actually like $3 at Walmart. Okay, now we're going to pull this tape off because this glue should be set. And now I want to take this off. I'm going to be reinforcing the wing with the tape. And the way we do that, again, this is the bottom. So right now I'm going to make sure I got all the glue off of the seam here. Or at least make sure it's smooth. So now this is the top and this is the bottom. So we're going to start with cutting out the battery hatch. So I'm going to go from hole to hole here for the battery. And the same thing on this side, go from that hole across the spar to this hole. And then go across the holes in the front. And across the holes in the back. I'm going to take out this piece. That's going to expose the bottom here. And I'm going to add the cap onto my firewall here. So I'm just going to put glue on top of the glue that's already there. And then I'm going to be pressing my other piece down onto this. Just like that. So now we can take a look at that. And that's down again. Beauty of this hot glue. Now I'm ready to move on to the next step, which is to go ahead and make sure that I do not have any glue buildup around the firewall, because now I'm going to be wrapping tape around it. And to ensure that I don't cut my tape, I'm just going to bevel back the edges. And now I'm going to run the tape. So this is all clean. I'm going to run the tape about 1 inch long and stick it underneath. Just like that. Run the tape back around the firewall. And all the way forward. To the point. And I'm just going to mash it down. Now you can spend some time and keep it wrinkle free, or you can just do it. It's really not going to matter one way or the other. But the idea is we want to tape this. And we're going to tape it off before we mount the motor. And I'm going to do this twice. So again, one more time. Run the tape inside and then around. And again forward. And again, I'm not too concerned about it. It's going to have a few wrinkles in it. That'll be fine. I'm just going to fold this over. Now for the front, because we've got this on the top, On the front, we're going to run a piece across the top here. Oh, about that long. We're just going to go right across the top and then fold it down on both sides. And I'm going to run a second piece. This one's going to be a little longer. Again, we're going to go right across the front. And it does make a difference in which way you're running the tape. So, lap the tape the same way I'm doing it here. And the reason I'm using masking tape here is because the masking tape shows up a lot better than the packing tape. So what I've done is I've run one piece of this will be masking tape, but you'll use the packing tape, and let it go from the corner to corner, going across where the pockets are for the spar, which will be right along the trailing edge here on the inside. And then you're going to cut it on an angle matching the leading edge, about maybe 1/4 of an inch longer, and then fold that around, much like I've done here. And so you do it on the bottom, you do the back piece, the center piece, and then the front piece. And then you turn it over, and working now with the top, you do the top piece, and again cut it about 1/4 of an inch or so longer, and then fold it over. That'll finish it. This will be the back piece, the center piece, which will be right behind the battery opening, and then the piece on the front, I'm going to go ahead and finish that. And again, I'm using the masking tape, but you would actually be using the regular packing tape. But see, I've cut it just a little bit long on either side, and then I would take my scissors and cut it off like that and like that. And then I would just simply fold this over and then fold it over on this side, and I'm not too concerned about that little bit right there. But the idea is it's going to finish it off by lapping the laps all on the bottom. So that's how you do the reinforcing, and again you do the reinforcing after you've gotten the wing completely taped together and glued together. And then finally, in the latest version of the kits, I did have a taper piece here that was about 3 inches long. In the wings that I'm building, I don't even use this, but I am providing it, so if you want to use it, you can. And this is actually cut and designed to go back here. The only thing is it closes this area up to the point where it makes it difficult to get in there. But again, if you want to use them, you simply glue these in just about like that. And the same thing, this one here would go on this side. And if you're going to use them, you want to use them, that's fine. You can actually glue them in as you glue the wing together. But again, it makes it a little more difficult to get inside. But if you glue these down, it does reinforce this area here. But with all the taping that I'm doing, again, I don't think there's any reason to do it. So, but I'll leave it up to the individual. The other thing is I've gone ahead and put these in temporarily. But there's also, in the latest version of the kits, there's 2 taper pieces that are like this. I used to take those little pieces back here and cut those, but now I'm providing these already cut. And this is how they come. You separate them, and then they actually go in this area here. So what you do is, after you've completed, you've taped everything off, this is the last thing you'll glue in. You just simply put it in the opening here, and then push it down, and then it should go right up against the spar. And if we push this in, and you can actually glue this in with hot glue, but that's how it would finish. And then the one on the other side is exactly the same way. We just take and push it in, push it down, and push it right in front of the spar. And again, we glue this in with hot glue, and you can see they're such a good fit that it's actually held in place there just by the snug fit. But at any rate, that would complete the battery box. The only thing left to do now is put a piece of Velcro in the bottom here for your battery. Okay, the last steps are to adding the control surfaces and adding the wing tips. And I'm going to show you how to do both now. You'll need to make sure there's no film on the control surface, and then go ahead and tape it off. One row of tape, and go from the bevel back. And this area right here will not get tape on it, and that's fine. On the back side, here's the bevel, so you're going to tape from here back. And again, this area right here will not get taped because of the width. Don't worry about filling that in. Once you've got that, then the bevel goes on the bottom. The surface matches the top surface of the wing, so this is actually going to attach like that. You're going to set back here 1/8 of an inch, and then use blendrum tape. Now, for demonstration, I'm going to use masking tape, but what I'm going to do is tape it back so that the blendrum is on half of the surface. And I'm using the masking tape because it'll show up much better in the video. But now I'm going to cut my blendrum tape, something like that on either side. And then what you're going to do then is attach that to the wing, and the way I attach it is I get it where I need it here and then push it right onto the wing just like that. And then I fold it back, and I also put the tape on the other side. So again, I'm going to do that one more time. I'm going to put my tape down halfway or thereabouts like that, and then I'm going to cut it. So I'm going to cut this back like this, and I'm going to cut this one back like this, just like that. And then we're going to set back about 1/8 of an inch from the edge, and I'm going to put this one down so we're like this. Again, very important, use blendrum tape for this. Don't use the masking tape. I'm just using the masking tape because it will show up better. To do the other side, the same thing. I'm going to cut a piece, again, this would be blendrum, and I want to make it the length of the hinge, and then I want to turn this up, and I'm going to put the tape so that it's right on the edge there, just like that, and then mash it down onto the surface, mash it down onto the wing. And then you can fold this back, and that would be the way you attach the control surface. To attach the horn, you're just going to come straight back from the hole to mount the servos. If you're using epoxy, then you're going to cut out above where the tab is because the epoxy will not glue to the tape. If you're going to be using hot glue, then you can just simply cut out the tape into the hole, and then a dab of hot glue on the top and the bottom, and push the ears down into the hot glue, and that will be sufficient to hold the servos in place. Also, finally, the wing tip. What you need to do is mark a center line down the center of the wing tip, and then set it so that the center of the wing matches the center of your line, bringing it to the front edge. And I use hot glue and hold it in place, and whenever it cures, then it is done, and that will complete the build of the CNC-HP wing.